West Brom against Wolves. We knew it would be feisty, and after Wolves went 2-0 up, it got particularly feisty. Unfortunately, not on the field, but off the field of play, in amongst the crowd. talkSPORT's Nigel Adderley and Dean Ashton described the scene.
And there is absolute chaos here on the running track, beyond the stand on this near side. And I think it's Wolves supporters who have been celebrating that second goal. And clearly that has antagonised people around them, but there's no excuse at all for what we've seen here.
They've completely lost it, haven't they, some of these supporters? Completely lost their heads. Yes, I'm sure it is to do with there being a possible Wolves supporter in there. You see just one man on his own in there being protected almost by the stewards as best they can.
And that's the area of the field where a number of the players' families are during the games, which explains why the players were heading across to that area.
Really, it's quite sad. It's borderline pathetic, isn't it? Crowd disorder saw play suspended for fully 34 minutes. Both sets of players left the field of play. Fighting broke out. We even saw the West Brom captain Kyle Bartley emerging from that area, kind of family section area of the ground, with a child in his arms, believed to be one of his own children, and heading up the tunnel. And I don't think Kyle came back. That was it for him. He didn't come back for the final 10 minutes or so of the game after the game restarted. But Simon, because it's the FA Cup and because the away support is bigger than it normally would be, there were 4,000 Wolves fans in the Smethwick end. Can anything be done to stop away fans getting tickets in the home sections? Because that appears to be the problem here. They popped up in areas they shouldn't have popped up in.
Yeah. I mean, all ticket games have to be managed in a certain way. But that's often the case. And it's often, ironically, in the family enclosures that these situations happened. I mean, I had it a few times at Palace where you found fans getting into the family enclosure and you think, well, that's the one place that you don't want these kind of people into. It's a difficult one. I mean, the policing of it, the stewarding of it, the response to it, the quantum of people that go to the games. If you don't give fans for a game of this significance in that part of the world the right amount of tickets, there's a criticism upon you upon that. If you do give them that, you've got to police and make sure that every aspect... I mean, we live in a digital world, and you would like to think that in every aspect of what you're doing inside these games now, certainly with Premier League football clubs, albeit West Brom and Wolves are not a Premier League football club anymore, but they have been in recent times, that there should be an ability to be able to control the processes better. It's disappointing. It's disappointing to see. And, you know, it's a bad reflection. I don't think it's anywhere near what we've seen before. It's nowhere. We're not going back to the dark ages. It's not a case of we need to look back over our shoulder. This is an isolated instance of people behaving badly. There are a few more of them creeping up every now and then I would like to see. But I don't think I think there's a variety of answers. Yes, you can limit it. Yes, you can police it more.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Bigger FA Cup away allocations. Maybe for flammable fixtures like this, maybe don't give them as many tickets.
Well, then you look at absolutely the segregation side of things. Because ultimately you're putting people in there. But if you've got people that are from one football club sitting in an environment that's specifically supposed to be for another football club, and it's a highly... no one should be able to have to explain the combustibility of ridiculous behaviour. But on one hand, you have an emotional game. You demand emotion. You want your fans behind it. And then there's this balancing line. So the best thing to do is try to find a methodology that enables people not to be in certain sections of the ground that they shouldn't be. But how you do that is a much more difficult task because nobody would not consider these things. The police safety meetings that would have happened before this event, they would have had local intelligence. They would have known who was coming to some extent, what the quantums, where they were going, how they were getting there, and all of these things, because it's not one of those back of the fag packet things.
No,
you have proper grown-up meetings about who's coming in order to get a safety certificate for the game and how they're getting here. But when you get moments like that, it's almost impossible to control. All you can do is manage it as quickly as you possibly can.
Did you have a moment like that at Palace?
We had a couple of instances with Brighton and Millwall where situations looked like they were going to get out of hand. And I think I told you the other day, giving the whole stand to Millwall once, I think it was 6,000 or 7,000 fans. What looked like a good, clever commercial idea turned into Sodom and Gomorrah.
It's so regrettable, Martin, isn't it? Because so many went to that game yesterday with the intention of enjoying a rivalry they'd been starved off for a dozen or so years.
Oh, you said something about lessening the tickets for the away fans, and I don't want to be. The last thing I want to do is end up contradicting myself, because I was the one to say that I feel as if the Old Firm game, Celtic and Rangers, have lost something.
And I
just
agree
lost
with
a
you.
bit of atmosphere because of the away fans not being allowed there, as long as they're being policed. But this was an opportunity. This was a Black Country derby, a big game, an FA Cup match. And if the allocation is correct, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to agree with that there. So, and most of you're talking about the Wolves fans would be, as you're looking at from the main stand onto the pitch, most of the Wolves fans would have been away over to the right hand side. The area where the trouble was, incidentally, as I used to visit the Hawthorns, that's where you would be sitting, and visitors would be allowed into that particular area. But you don't want to go back, as Simon said, back to the dark ages again. Hopefully that these are isolated incidents, but it was really unfortunate, and it's very, very sad.
I mean, you've been involved in, no doubt, Villa Birmingham matches, Martin. I mean, obviously there is a huge undercurrent
of course,
tension in a match like that, as there was yesterday.
Yes.
As Simon rightly says, this would not have been prepared on the back of a fag packet. This would, the preparation would be extremely detailed going into this game yesterday, and yet disorder occurred.
Yeah, well, there's things that there are absolutely and utterly outside the police's control, but and somebody getting tickets into an area that they shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll fuel the argument about policing. I don't think it would make any difference. I don't think that is a case of what people are suggesting is that the police want the games to be earlier, which takes away the alcohol element from it. I'm not entirely sure that this adds weight to that, but it will add weight to their argument. It'll also add weight to their argument about more policing, which is a financial decision that football clubs have to make. And the FA Cup allows them to make that decision because both football clubs are paying for that policing. It comes out of the distribution of the game. And I also think the balance was right. I used to drive me crazy, the media, when our fans were fighting and the cameras would spin into the stands. I remember John Motson years ago, God rest his soul, but England were playing Norway, and we stopped watching the game. We were watching these hooligans in the fans in the stadium, and I don't want to watch them. I want to watch the game. And the more you shine a light on these people, the more they behave in this fashion. And I think the balance was right on the reporting of it, in terms of there was enough showed of it to get the context of it without going into every single aspect of it, because shining a light on people sometimes is, I know sunlight is the best disinfectant, I get that, but by the same token also giving people more credence than they need to have is another balance they've got. And I think the media's coverage of it on ITV was probably just about right yesterday.
I disagree with that, but anyway, I think if it's kicking off, you need to see what is kicking off. I'm keen to hear from supporters this morning who were there. What was your experience yesterday? To your mind, looking at it from distance, as you no doubt were, what actually sparked the whole thing off? Was it the fact that away fans, a number of them, managed to get in amongst some of the home support, and thereafter, when the away side had taken a lead in the game, that it got way too passionate for its own good? I mean, passionate doesn't come into it. It just becomes reckless, and we're just talking about hooliganism. People who were there who shouldn't be there because maybe they went there with the intention of causing trouble. What went on and why did it go on? 03717 223344. So here's Phil, who's I think a Wolves supporter who was at the match. Phil, thanks for joining us. What happened and what did you see?
Well, there was lots of things going on all the way through the game that didn't get highlighted. The corner where the Wolves fans and the Albion fans, there were constant missile throwing throughout the game. So there was bottles thrown. It was highlighted a bit more when the players come on the pitch on the goal. So there was a constant barrage of missiles between both sets of supporters all the way through the game. The flashpoint to me was when I think it was Barkley shoulder-charged Kuna. Because what has gone totally unnoticed, that a ball was going to fetch the ball that had gone out of play for a throw-in, and somebody from the Albion side of the field threw a bottle and it hit the ball boy. The ball boy went to the ground and he was being treated by 4 or 5 paramedics. It then led to the corner, which Doyle was taking, again, 2 or 3 bottles. The referee told the player to take the corner while he was still being missiles, lighters and things being thrown at him. So the flashpoint was there before the actual goal was scored. The goal gets scored, obviously kicks off. The actual incidents in the other corner, in the family enclosure, to me, was probably down to the hospitality areas probably containing Wolves fans, because all the supporters come out of the Brummie Road end into the Halfords Lane end. Hence why there was a lot of confusion, because you got the players there, and I think it was more of a hospitality thing. At the end of the day, there were only 2 arrests made in that game. 2 arrests. There was a third one made after the game, and there's another 2 being made overnight. So that totals 5 arrests. The police were actually told by the club and their liaison to treat it as a low-key game and not a high-key game. So there's a fault there, because the police officers had to go out of the ground, back to the vans, to go and collect their safety hats, helmets and stuff like that. So there was a momental cock-up to me.
Oh, it seems to be that way. I mean, there were more than 2 arrests. We know that for a fact, Phil. And also, when it comes to the bit that plays suspended for 34 minutes, you've got a problem. And you've got a major incident going on. And it's got to be sorted. I mean, Simon, you're shaking your head. What do you make of some of the detail in that?
That can't possibly be correct, because it's not the club's gift to tell the police what the game is. It is a consultation with the police. You sit in the safety meeting, and the police have a lot to say for themselves.
Yes.
And have a lot of views.
Yeah.
And so it's not a case, and nobody in their right mind is ever going to say to the police that a game between 2 clubs that have a history of great rivalry because of the geographic situation, know that there's intelligence going behind it, that there will be some flashpoints possibly, is ever going to say to the old Bill, this is a low-key game. Because they're not blind, the police. West Midlands Police, or what Midlands Police it is, are not blind.
No,
so I think
and it didn't kick off at 11:45 for no reason.
It's just silly, isn't it?
Yeah, Ben's a big Wolves fan. What do you want to tell us, Ben?
Well, Jim, just to add to what the guys already said, something that's come about this morning, there's a video floating around of the incident at the West Brom end. Now, it looks as though there's a guy there that is in the wrong place, and for whatever reason, it doesn't show the bit when the goal goes in, but he's obviously shown in some way that his allegiance is with Wolves. And what's come from that is that 2 stewards are standing by him and a police officer. He's not doing anything. He's not kicking off the guy. He's just standing with the 2 stewards and the police officer. Now, all of a sudden, the Albion guys, they can see that, and then they all start piling in from different angles. And you've got, within a couple of seconds, you can see, and this is an Albion fan that's obviously filmed this, and you can see within a couple of minutes, there's probably 50, 60 Albion fans come from the other stand, and that's when you obviously saw the flashpoint. But my argument is, for one, the first point I want to make, how has he got that ticket? He's got that ticket from someone in an Albion perspective.
Yeah.
He's an idiot for going. I would never do that. I was in with the Wolves fans and had a great day in our end. And to be fair, in our end, we behaved impeccably in terms of that. But why is the guy doing that? Why is someone from the Albion section giving him a ticket in the first place? And thirdly, it's one guy. You can see, everyone can see the video. It's online, and it's one guy. He's not doing anything. He's not throwing punches. The stewards could have got him out. Why did 50, 60, 70 Albion fans after then get piling and create what was created? There was no need for it at all.
No, absolutely, Ben. You couldn't be more right than that. We'll check out that video you're talking about. Going to finish with Alistair, who was also at the game yesterday, I think, and you're a Wolves fan as well, Alistair. What have you got for us?
Yeah, no, I flew over with my young son yesterday. We live over in Ireland, so I flew across for the game, got there early to avoid any flashpoints. What the guy said beforehand is exactly right. There was at the far end, it all kind of went off, and I don't know if the guy got the ticket because it's hospitality or he's a friend of one of the players or something, and I don't know if he jumped up and celebrated. I mean, we haven't played them in a long time. Blah 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 blah. I remember once going to a game about 30 years ago and getting a ticket in the wrong end and sat on my hands, petrified. Maybe he couldn't do that. But what did happen, which no one's really talking about, is there's lots of discussion at the minute about both clubs being sanctioned and the behaviour of both sets of fans. The Wolves fans didn't do anything. I mean, there were 4,000 behind the goal, and on our right-hand side, it just went off like you wouldn't believe. And the second goal went in, and you got the normal idiots run to the front of the Albion section, doing the whole, come on, all this nonsense. And the police kind of went and stood in front of them. The problem was they then had 100 or so other idiots behind them, then pile forward, pushed all of those guys into the police. And then the police were just, having to get their batons out to kind of push them all back. That had nothing to do with the incident at the other end of the pitch, where if there was a Wolves fan, that's a completely separate...
Yes, I get you. I understand. I mean, you wonder how this can be avoided, though, Alistair. That's a big question. They try to avoid it by kicking it off early, 11:45. They do their best. As Simon rightly says, the preparation for this wouldn't be done in the back of a fact packet. It's extremely extensive, and yet there are problems like this.
Yeah, look, and I've got a lot of sympathy for the police, to be fair, because the incidents happened at diametrically opposed areas of the ground. And, if you've got one guy being set upon by 40 or 50 and causing that carnage, a whole lot of police went over there, and then directly opposite, where a much more potentially serious incident, because you've got about 200 West Brom fans trying to get on the pitch to get towards the Wolves fans. So their resources are being split. It was not pleasant. I mean, in the end, you end up kind of laughing, and then you just thought, this is pathetic.
Yes, absolutely. Alistair,
25 minutes.
You couldn't have chosen a better word. Thank you very much indeed. Pathetic is right. Pathetic or not, though, we'll run to the police to find out more this morning, because it's developing. Stay with us. It's 11:30.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.